On this episode of MotoringBox, we're going to be installing a reversing camera. Welcome back to MotoringBox. I'm Sean McKellar, and today we're going to be adding an essential item to this old AU Fairmont gear, which I've owned for around 2 years. Now, this car came out in 2001, and it is missing some modern technology, including a reversing camera. Some people will scoff at the idea of adding one to an old car because, hey, I can reverse properly and I don't need the assistance of a camera. But in reality, it goes way beyond that, because did you know on average 7 children are killed in Australia every year in driveway related incidents? And on top of that, 60 are seriously injured. So you might think the odds of that happening to you are quite rare, but really the odds are a lot better than winning lotto, and I play lotto every single week. But this is a lottery you definitely would not want to win. It'd completely change your life and the lives of people around you. So we can mitigate all of that risk by installing a reversing camera just like this one. Now, there are lots of different systems out there on the market, and some of them rely on little screens which you have to stick on your dash somewhere, or they integrate into the screen of your head unit. But this is a completely standalone option which we're installing today. It actually replaces the entire rear vision mirror in the car. Now, the mirror in my car actually rattles a lot, so I'm not going to miss the stock standard OEM mirror. So we're going to take the whole thing off. This thing actually includes a mount to suit an AU Falcon all the way through to FGX Falcon. So I'll put the full details of this item up on the screen. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to purchase it. But let's have a look and see what's actually in the box. So firstly, we've got our instructions. Get rid of those. We have the reversing camera itself and also the wiring pack, which runs from the boot back here to the camera. We have a mirror mount. So this is to mount the mirror to the mount on the windscreen. We have the power cable, which runs from your fuse panel up to the mirror itself. And then lastly, we have the mirror unit. So look, it's a fairly neat looking mirror. I think it'll actually look a lot better than the OEM unit. It just looks a lot more modern. It's sort of frameless in a way. And this thing actually does have a 1080p dash cam built into it too. And I believe it already has a 32 gig memory card loaded into it. So that was included in the listing. I'm not really worried about the quality of this dash cam because I don't hold high hopes for it, and I already have a dash cam installed into this car already. We will test it out, we'll see how it performs, but I'm way more interested in the reversing camera functionality. So this thing actually has, if you believe the listing anyway, quite a large screen hidden behind this mirror. So in the listing, it looks like it goes full width and it looks really impressive, but I think the reality is probably not going to be quite that good. But anyway, as long as it's large enough to look at and view easily, I think it's going to work absolutely fine. So let's get to the installation. Now, the center mirror in these cars typically needs a specialized tool in order to remove them, but you can actually make one yourself using the dimensions put on screen. Once you have the tool ready to go, you simply need to push it in under the clip of the mirror and perhaps use a small mallet or rubber-tipped hammer to tap it into place. And then you should be able to remove the mirror by lightly tapping on each side of the mount. Being very careful here because any excess force may result in shattering your windscreen. With the mirror removed, we can get a better look at how it actually mounts to the windscreen. The tool simply pushes down this clip and lets you unhook it from the mounting on the windscreen. Now, this system is a bit of a bitch to remove, but luckily our brand new mirror simply uses a screw to mount it onto the bracket. So push it down and use your little rubber tipped hammer if necessary to put it into place, tighten the screw, and you're good to go. From there, we're going to move around to the back of the car and install our reversing camera. Now, this car has obviously had an attempt on it before. So we're going to remove the insulation from the underside of the boot and then get a look at how we can mount our reversing camera. Now, luckily, we can pull the cable through fairly easily through the grommet, and then we just need to locate where we need to attach our screws to mount our camera. Luckily, this gaping hole still has enough space on either side to screw our camera into place. This looks a little bit unsightly, but luckily you're never going to see this surface when the boot is shut. From there, we can pull the cable through, connect it up to the backside of the loom, and pull the cabling through the structure of the boot. It is a little bit tricky getting it down to the bottom, but once you do, you can pull away this little grommet, feed it through, and then you have the fun task of getting it through this kind of rubber sealed tube to the interior of the car. Now this is going to take you about 10 or 15 minutes, but be patient, feed it through, and then once it appears out the other side, pull it through, and then pull it through the hole into the boot. Reseat the little plug, and you're good to go. From there we can move inside the boot of the car. We need to remove this panel from the right hand side of the boot. We can see our little premium sound amp hidden in behind, and we just need to pull our wiring through towards the rear tail light. The red wire on this kit actually needs to connect to the wiring for the reversing bulb on your car, so that once the bulb illuminates, it's going to trigger the camera to turn on, and then feed through to your center mirror screen. So we're simply finding out which one is the reversing bulb wire, which is the red one with the black line on it. Then we're going to splice in our additional wire using a heat shrink connector. From there we can move our attention back to the rest of the wiring, which needs to feed through to the dashboard. Tuck it in behind the trim behind your seat, run it down the side bolster, down to the floor, and then tuck it in under your kick plates on the back, run it under the B pillar and then under the kick plate beside the front seat. This is actually really easy to do on any Falcon. You shouldn't really need any specialized tools except for maybe a trim removal tool. And from there we can turn our attention back to the wiring which runs from the mirror. Tuck it in behind the roof lining, get it down the A pillar, and then run it down to the fuse panel under the dash. Now this kit actually comes with some handy fuse panel connectors, and as always I've got this the wrong way around. Now the wiring here is yellow for constant power, red for the ignition. Once they're connected up successfully, you can mount your ground, and I've worked out this screw here on the top of the fuse panel actually is grounded. So I'm going to slip my little ground connector C-clip in behind it, tighten up the screw, and the job is done. Doesn't really get much simpler than that. Alright guys, so I'm down here at Costco today using their massive car park because I'm pretty impressed with how this installation turned out. Have a look at this rear vision mirror. Now I think the picture you get out of it when you're actually using it as a mirror isn't quite as bright as the original mirror, but that's most likely because it has that LCD screen built in within it. Now if I just put it into reverse, put my foot on the brake, you can see it is a little bit hard to show it on screen here. I'll see if I can turn my camera's brightness up a little bit. You can see the rear vision camera here. I've got it aimed down pretty low. And if anything, trying to film it is making it look worse than it really is. You can see the real reflection in the mirror still, but you can see that camera's footage. There you go. So you can see the footage. I do have it aimed down pretty low, but you can see that car parked directly there behind me. So if I shift it into drive, after a couple of seconds, it disappears, and you'll see that it's also displaying the date and time there as well. I haven't set that properly yet, so it's not 2019, it's 2021. But yeah, it's a nice little feature, a nice little touch. So let's go for a little bit of a drive and we'll find a park which is between one or more cars. I have to say though, I'm pretty impressed with it so far. I'm not really sure if that camera is going to be wide enough to really be helpful. So we've got a park here between this V35 Skyline and this Nissan Pulsar. Let's see what it looks like. So this might be a little bit difficult for me to show. So we can see the park there. So I'm going to do it by eye to start with, but let's have a look. So the camera is a pretty wide angle, but it looks as though it's doing a decent job. So if you're not sure how far back you need to go in the park, let's go forward a little bit. I sort of nailed that one anyway without looking at the camera at all, but we'll put it back into reverse. Try and focus our camera. So at the very least, it is sort of showing you how far back you can go. It is a nice little touch, you know, if there was a child or something behind your car, you would actually see it. But yeah, look, as far as the camera quality goes, I think it's really good. Have a look at that sort of tree there behind us and that car in the adjacent park behind. Nice and clear. I was a little bit skeptical, you know, because this camera, it must be a HD rear vision camera because it's got a really severe crop going on here. You know, the whole top of the image is cropped off and so is the bottom because this screen is so narrow, like height-wise. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the quality of that footage. But I think because of that crop, it's not as useful as if the screen was a bit more square. If it had a bit more height to it, I do think that would be better. But look, this is a pretty good compromise, and it is nice to know that I've got that extra level of safety there. So I've just put it back into neutral, the screen's turned off, but if you hit this button on the underside, it should turn back on again. There we go. So this is actually a touch screen, so if you touch it, you'll get some options here. So you've got a record option. Apologies, it's very hard to film this. You've got record, you can take a photo, you can, I know that one there must be something to do with audio. You can swap between the rear and the front camera. So there's the front camera. I will put some footage up on the screen of the proper file off the SD card because I'm not going to be able to show it very clearly here in this footage, but we'll have a look at the footage off the direct file off the SD card before we make a judgment on that. And I'll put my thoughts up on screen right now. But really for me, that built-in dash cam I think is just an added bonus. I do have a proper DD Mini 2 dash cam sitting there in front of it. And do you want to know the greatest thing about it? It does not rattle at all. That mount, that bracket that goes to the windscreen mount is extremely solid. And I tell you what, being able to drive over here and not have that mirror rattling over every single bump is already, for me, worth the entry price for this thing. So I think I paid about $250 for this mirror from memory, but I think it is a pretty cool addition, and I really do enjoy modernizing cars in a way that is not really apparent. So really, when this thing is not even turned on, if you're just driving, it looks completely stock. You know, sure, the shape is a little bit different, but no one's really going to know that there is actually a reversing camera hidden within this unit. And I think that is pretty cool. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As I mentioned, I'm really happy with this. I can recommend it for the money if you're after a reversing cam for pretty much any car. You know, have a look and see what is actually out there. This is perfect for Falcons from AU to FGX. But no matter what car you have, if it's a pretty popular car, there's bound to be an option like this one available to suit. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.